Hi, I'm George Page for Nature. The natural world has been an inspiration to artists for many thousands of years. In fact, judging from ancient cave paintings, nature inspired the world's very first artists. Paleolithic cave dwellers in southern Europe, for example, festoon their walls with drawings and paintings of birds and bison. The greats, including Leonardo da Vinci, Albrecht Dürer, Rubens, and many others, sketched and painted from nature. In the last century, John James Audubon and more recently Roger Tory Peterson immortalized the birds of America in their art. And so the tradition continues right up to the present day. This week on Nature, we have a gentle and lovely story about a young Scotsman, a naturalist and wildlife artist, whose work is a brilliant combination of art and science. Our film is called One Man's Island. Just a boat ride away from one of Scotland's most popular cities, there's a tiny island. Noisy, smelly, and shimmering with life. Seabirds are its people, and greenstone rocks its castles. Edinburgh is the city, and this is the Isle of May. It stands sentinel to the Firth of Forth, 30 miles from 20th century Scottish bustle. It's an ancient haven for wildlife and a modern nature preserve. The very first of Scotland's many bird observatories was set up here in this hazardous channel 50 years ago. One man who's been finding his way here for 10 years is Keith Brockie, artist and naturalist. His fascination for the birds, seals, the flowers, and the rhythms of this island's seasons is so strong that he's devoting a whole year to capturing them with paint and pencil. Though he's worked in frozen Greenland and desert Arabia, he finds this Scottish island special to him. A place where there's time both to look and see, to get close to the life he draws, and to understand its ways and meanings. He brings the knowledge and the tools of science and art together in his quest.
I think drawing with a telescope is really vital in areas like this, with all the dense colonies on the cliffs. You've really got to be far enough away from the birds so you're not intruding on them. Each drawing is a distillation of many hours sitting watching the bird and sketching. Often I don't do any drawing at all. I just sit and watch the birds and get used to them. The relationship of the bill to the head and where the eye comes in relation to the bill. We've also got this beautiful white stripe between the eye and the bill, which continues onto the bill, really. which is just a nice little detail which shows the bird off to its best. In this sketch I've got one with its tail jammed right up against the rock. It's little details like this I'm always looking for. They always make the picture much more interesting.
Keith Brockey plans to produce both a book of sketches and a major painting of this renowned colony of birds, enterprises that have found their roots in his love for this lively island. There are no trees on the Isle of May, but around its foot there's a forest. Seaweeds, red and brown, growing one upon the other. A pasture grazed by sea urchins. In this woodland, there are dead man's fingers, soft corals that feed on drifting plankton. Currents that float jellyfish through the forest canopy. Here, the legendary seals search out small fish and crabs with underwater ease. The island creatures bridge two worlds, and Keith Brockey captures both their forms and their skills.
I think one of my favourite species for sketching here is the shag. They're such amazing looking birds with their really snake-like appearance and a lovely glossy green plumage with an amazing emerald green eye. They have incredibly massive feet as well. Most people don't see the shag in its full glory because it really only has the crest from January to late March.
The way a bird is made relates to the way it lives, and the many different birds fit into the way the island itself is built. These broad, stepped cliffs are ideal for the untidy nests of shags. They mate in early March, sometimes as late as July. This male is not just nest building. His labors seem to strengthen the bond between the pair. Here there's a burglary going on. Shags have no respect for their neighbors' nests. A collection of flotsam and jetsam they see as fair game, along with other seaweeds gathered legitimately from the shoreline. Whoever said birds don't do things just for fun? Of course, there's more than fun in the supreme maneuverability of these various seabirds around their precarious living quarters. Airlifting beakfuls of turf to the nest demands much aerial dexterity. The competition here is to make a home where no other kittiwake can. And they are master builders with saliva and guano. But there are moments when they make their downstairs neighbors very much aware that others are trying to move in above. Like a crowded tenement, the cliff face is packed on all floors. In the penthouse apartment, there are puffins. Traditionally clowns among birds in appearance, they make use of rabbit burrows as their homes, though they can dig out their own if necessary. Problem 1 for new payers is whether there's anyone else already at home. Problem 2 will be whether they like the place anyway. Old established payers simply return to the same burrow they used last year. Apparently, a little billing and cooing keeps the pairs on good terms, an essential ritual if they're to survive the season together, but with crowded housing and the intrusions of neighbors. To Keith's eye, these are known birds. They wear plastic identification rings. They've been here before. The Isle of May is a research island, an open-air laboratory where scientists try to understand how these very social birds live and what they need to survive. Authorities discourage casual human visitors. The meeting of artists and scientists here is encouraged. Keith's attention to detail ensures that he carefully defines the grooves on the beak. To the scientist's eye, those are what pick out the breeding birds from the immature ones. The Isle of May lives up to its name with its floral displays. White campions and pink thrift deck the cliffs in a spring glory that'll last till early summer. Such spring blooms have not been reserved for the birds and insects alone. The island has a long association with people. 3.5 centuries ago, King James IV was a frequent visitor. But 800 years before that, a missionary, Adrian, arrived from Ireland. Since that time, a priory and a small self-sufficient fishing community found a transitory home on the Isle of May. Only the sounds of seabirds and wind echo here now, and eider ducks nest where perhaps monks till the cliff-top soil. Well camouflaged, it took Keith a long time to find this duck.
This eider's in a very nice location because the background is in deep shadow, which again helps to highlight the head of the eider duck. Most eiders are very tame, but with this one I spent just 15 minutes just sitting beside her, allowing her to get used to me. First of all, I try to get the position of the shadows on the bird first, because you can always fill in all the detail later on, and eiders are very complicated plumage-wise, with all the markings giving them a really cryptic camouflage. You've got to treat each bird as an individual, just like humans are. They vary so much.
Man and bird in lonely harmony, and that's how Keith prefers it. Close to the crowd of seabirds, he will seek the sitters for his major canvas. For many hours, this research hide will be Keith's window on the world of the guillemots. For sheer numbers, noise, smell, and above all, spectacle, guillemots are unmatched.
What I'm really trying to achieve is to show the equivalent of a seabird city with all the large numbers of birds and a very small space and the relative squalor with all the guano and just a real mess everywhere. Here I'm working on a series of sketches for a large oil painting. The canvas I think should be about 6 feet by 4 feet. Most people envisage the guillemots as sitting bolt upright all the time, whereas most of the time on the ledge when they're relaxed, they're crouching or preening or doing all manner of things. Here I've got the ideal situation with a ledge which already has a hide looking over it, which is good because it keeps the wind off me and shields me from the sight of the birds, which means they're all very relaxed as well. Here I'm just trying to build up as many sketches of the birds in all sorts of positions as I can. With the reference sketches like this, it means I can draw the chicks on the ledge very quickly, just to get positions of how they sit, how they beg for food, with the knowledge that I have this sketch to refer to later on when I'm filling in all the details.
Sheltering her chick with her wings, a mother fends off neighboring chicks who might otherwise grab the single fish she's brought for a youngster. It may be just one fish, but it's more than a mouthful for the chick. The catching is little problem, but finding the way back to the right youngster is like finding a needle in a haystack. For the artist, too, finding his way in the struggling mass of life means charting a careful course.
Later on in the day, when I finished doing the actual sketches of the birds, I sketched them onto the grid reference on a smaller scale to build up the overall composition. And then the next day I can go out and look for something else I want to put in the picture. I'm really limited to a few hours of the day when the light is hitting the ledge in the same position, because as soon as it changes, all the birds are very different to what I want for that picture.
The ungainly, though varied and lively antics of the guillemots begin to come alive in the sketch. But in the water, the guillemot seems quite a different bird, a fast, streamlined master submariner. The small wings are now perfect propellers for an underwater flying machine. Keith must divide his time among his various sitters at this busy period of the year.
I really enjoy sitting sketching in the middle of a shag colony. You can really feel at one with all the birds around you. I think the shags have got one of the most grotesque looking chicks of any bird. They're really reptilian.
In a matter of weeks, the chicks put on their first feathers, but they're still fed by their parents. The watching shapes the painting. Elsewhere along the cliff, the razorbills are bringing up their chicks. Each chick grows fast, for astonishingly, it must be able to leave the cliff before it's fully developed. On the ledge, it's vulnerable to predatory gulls. It would be safer at sea. So like the guillemot chicks, it too must be ready for the dark night when it will be called on by its parents to leap into space and fall to the ocean below. Its wings will still be useless, but its rib cage is resilient enough should the chick bounce on the rocks on the way down. structure and behavior in perfect harmony. Even the comic face of the puffin masks a surprise. Its beak opens parallel. It's not hinged. This way, the birds can cram in as many as 10 sand eels at a time. Bringing back a load can be an exhausting task in itself. The fishing grounds sometimes lie several miles from the cliff-top burrows. A delivery arrives, but there are dangers to be faced. This gull failed to intercept, and the puffin went straight into the burrow. Other puffins may not be as lucky as they run the gauntlet. The lesser blackback wins. Fortunately, not many gulls here develop this habit, so few chicks go hungry in their homes below. This puffin colony on the Isle of May is growing fast, unaffected by the gull's behavior. The chick grows and feeds down here until ready for independent life. And then, one night, it must head for the sea, perhaps attracted by the sound of the waves. The journey is treacherous, even on the darkest night. They've had no chance to rehearse this operation. Every pause, every stretch is dangerous. They must get far offshore and quickly. Unlike young puffins, juvenile gulls exercise frequently and then go on to feast on a puffin chick that left its burrow just a little too late in the night and fell victim to an adult gull's beak. The gull's natural role is that of scavenger. Here they're fishing for dead chicks, the victims of a storm that swept them from their ledges. Keith, too, is counting the cost of that storm. He'll check these bodies for rings and help to assess how many died. But the corpses are useful as well for detailed close-up sketches he could not obtain otherwise. There is no lull here after the storm. The birds left keep up their usual abuse of neighbors, their greeting of relatives, and their constant clamor for food. These kittiwakes seem to call their name forever, as though it will be forgotten in the roar of the surf. Within the colony, older, more experienced birds occupy the central nests. Newcomers must take their chance on the edge. This adult's metal leg ring bears a number and a return address. Its movements, lifespan, and perhaps the cause of its death will in time be added to our growing knowledge of these birds. As the nestlings grow older, feathers begin to emerge through the warm down. Then the black collar and wing bars appear. These will distinguish them from adults for the next 12 months. So the kittiwakes are cataloged. An easier job than approaching the fulmars.
Fulmars have a very nasty habit of spitting oil at you when you get near them, and they can be very accurate up to about 4 feet away. So here I was just gradually working into a position where it was close enough to draw the bird, but all the time being very wary that the bird could at any minute start spitting all this oil on me. They're very beautiful birds to draw. They've got a very complicated bill with a tubular nostril. So here I'm trying to get some of the detail of that. They've also got a very beautiful eye with some black feathering just before it, which gives them a very gentle appearance, which belies their real character. It's really nice getting close to some of the birds and not having to sit back with the telescope all the time, because you can really get to know the bird much better. There is a case where you can overwork a painting or a drawing. With this one I was mainly concentrating on the head because I was interested in the bill form and the shading. I don't really know how or to draw the line to stop working. It's just something in your subconscious. While I was sketching this bird, its mate landed just above me, just sitting there praying that none of them and become so disturbed at me that I started spitting.
Just keeping the page unsoiled by passing birds is problem enough, especially in the fading light of warm summer evenings, when the highly sociable puffins often go for a communal flight. The fly past is a puffin spectacular with amazingly few collisions. calm of late summer is broken by another storm. The island is the exposed part of a shelf of greenstone rock. Forged by a volcano, it lies tilted. The western shore rises in gigantic cliffs, a serpentine wall split into crags and pinnacles and caves by the gnawing of the waves. The storms pass as quickly as they arise. The teeth of the island seem less threatening in the afterglow. Once a ton or more of coal was burned each night, high on a gigantic grate, a beacon to warn sailors. In 1676, it was the first Scottish lighthouse. Today, 2 lights identify the Isle of May. The lower auxiliary house is home for the Bird Observatory and for Keith. It's autumn on the May. The cliffs are quiet, empty. But the island is not without birds. Many autumn migrants journey through the night, navigating by the stars. The Isle of May sits at a key point. Some birds arrive from across the North Sea. Others are moving past southward, down the mainland coast. Keith is joined by Dr. Mike Harris, a scientist who specializes in seabird research and who spends several months each year here. It's a good night for trapping, dark and foggy with an easterly wind. Dazzling birds with a bright light is one of many techniques adapted by modern bird ringers from the catching methods of the old fowlers who hunted for the pot. And they're in luck. This is a purple sandpiper. It's a bird of particular interest to Keith. He's followed them on ringing expeditions as far as their breeding grounds in Norway. He once found a bird here he personally ringed up there on the tundra. This one has a ring dated 1972, which makes it the oldest purple sandpiper known. Bagging the bird does no harm. Back at the observatory, they'll be transferred to holding boxes, where they'll have more room and sit quietly in the dark for their overnight stay. In the morning, they'll be examined, measured, and safely released to continue their migration. The first rays of sun illuminate other overnight arrivals, starlings. These are in from the continent and busy refueling after the journey. And a goldcrest, Britain's smallest bird. It weighs less than an ounce, and yet amazingly, it has crossed the North Sea to get here. It's clearly and understandably tired. In too has come a redwing, a colorful thrush from Scandinavia. Keith has discovered that one of the overnight guests was certainly here before.
Well, this purple sandpiper was originally ringed on the island on the 27th of December 1972 as an adult bird then. So that makes this bird at least 13 years old, which is probably the oldest purple sandpiper recorded in Britain so far, probably the world. That's fantastic. I've had to renew its ring because the original digits were starting to wear off. The metal was getting very, very thin. So I'm just going to have to renew one of these rings, which is very brittle now, so I'll put a new colouring on it. These colourings were put on to enable us to check on the presence of birds in 1972 and 73, just to check which birds came back to the island. So now I'm just putting on this new one, which will help me check on it in the future. That's fine. So you've still got your gaily coloured socks now renewed. So hopefully I'll be able to improve on this by catching it in the years to come. So this ringing enables us to find out just how old these purple sandpipers can live. Because until a lot of ringing's been done on these birds, everything's just conjecture. But I've caught at least 7 this year, which are over 10 years old. So only continued ringing in the years to come will prove just how old these birds can live. So now I'll just release this bird.
By day, many of the migrants can be caught in huge traps called Heligolands, named after another island observatory on the other side of the North Sea. The Isle of May is a mecca for those who investigate bird migrations. In the hands of these skilled ringers, the birds are unharmed, while a great deal of information is quickly recorded. A metal numbered ring identifies each bird.
127, Louis.
A single measurement, such as the length of a wing, can reveal not only age and sex, but even where it's come from. Weight can be a measure of distance traveled or the speed of recuperation in preparation for the next stage of the journey. And here's something special, a woodcock, a wading bird that curiously prefers to live in the woods and not on the shore. It's a hurly-burly of gentle expertise, a slight invasion of the privacy of each bird, but it fills a computer with vital statistics, and it's hoped leads to more understanding of the secrets of migration.
Very malign birds, starlings, aren't they?
For Keith, it's another chance to be close to the birds, not so much the starlings as the more unusual ones.
It's great to have a bird in the hand to draw. Without being in observatories like this, I'd very rarely get a chance to handle such rare birds at all. So it gives me a great opportunity to observe birds and to get details from them which I'll never get in the field. Things like the eye and the colour of the soft parts, the bill and the feet, are things that you can never really get from birds in the field.
And the bird he's drawing? A great gray shrike. Sketchbook and computer, each filled with its own form of data, both capturing the Isle of May's passing throng. Regular visitors, such as bluethroats, or exotic strays, like Pallas warbler, a Siberian bird very far off its course for Thailand.
Birds like these long-eared owls just come in very tired and all the way from Scandinavia after a non-stop flight across the North Sea. And the Isle of May is being so prominent out from the coast. It's one of the birds' first landfalls.
These ears are false, just feather ornaments. The real ears are huge and are concealed behind the feathers of the face. The owl's hearing is so acute it can pinpoint the scurrying of a mouse in total darkness. It's November now on the Isle of May, and the cliffs and caves echo with the eerie singing of seals. On a beach called Silver Sands, female Atlantic gray seals haul out to give birth to their pups. It's the climax of the seal's year. Bull seals battle to secure their mates and to keep young upstarts in their place. Pups guzzle and grow fat on triple cream. They'll be independent in about a month. It's a sight that delights Keith Brocky. The pup gains about 4 pounds a day, while the mother loses about 9.
I really do enjoy the seals out here, sketching and painting them. The seal pups are great wide-eyed things, all lying fattening up on their cow's milk. Usually the pups lie on their backs, rolling about asleep most of the time, making strange gurgling noises. They're really super things to draw.
Keith's sketches show how seals can control their nostrils. Normally, muscles operating like elastic bands keep the nostrils tightly closed. Other muscles open them, only when a breath must be taken. Very sensible for an underwater mammal. Seals, both young and old, are clumsy and ungainly when moving on land, a curious contrast to their grace in the sea. On the beach, cows can become aggressive towards each other, but a female may avoid fighting by flaring her nostrils, flapping her limbs, hissing, and making low head gestures. These outbursts can pose a threat to the well-being of any pup caught in the middle. It could be dangerous for Keith, too. He keeps half an eye open for trouble. He needs not only the docile face of the seal, but also the wrinkled, threatening nose of the angry cow for his book. The Atlantic gray bull is usually considerably larger than the cow and recognizable in profile by his rather Roman nose. The cow, except when angry, has a softer, more dog-like head. Buffeted by the waves, they've developed their own ways of keeping together for successful mating. Then they doze. It's early winter. Keith and Mike notice something unusual. Guillemots, the centerpiece of Keith's year on the island, have returned unexpectedly to their ledges. Just why, no one knows for sure. And curiously, among those white-faced in plumage, already there are a few in darker summer dress. Again, why? For artists and scientists alike, such new puzzles constantly arise. But that's for another study, another painting.
Nature is made possible by public television stations, your gas company, and America's gas industry, supplying natural gas across this land of ours, providing gas energy to fuel industry, warm homes, heat water, and cook meals for over 160 million people from coast to coast.